Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in today's video I'm going to be going over 9 beginner mistakes that you should avoid with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And before I actually get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new uploads or any other important videos, lessons, or tutorials. To start off, I'm going to show you the most common error that I had, and you probably have it now with HTML, which is going to be with the script. So over here, I have a button with a few bootstrap classes, and then I have an ID, so I can select it with my JavaScript file. So now let's go to the JavaScript file, and over here we can see that I've created a button element, and so here we're selecting it. And under, I've commented the event listener. So I'm going to uncomment this now. And all that we're doing here is once I click the button, then it's going to return a console log of the event. So now when I save it, we can see that there's an error, which is saying cannot read properties of null, and then reading add event listener. And so the reason for this error is because the script is loading before the body with all of the elements inside of it, so it's not going to see the button. The first way to fix this is by putting the script at the very bottom of your body. So you're going to have all of the elements here, and then all of the JavaScripts at the very bottom of the body. And once I save this, now we can see that the error goes away, and when I click the button, we can see that it console logs the event. Now the second way to do this is by keeping it in the head. I save it now, we can see the error is back. And to fix this, you're gonna go after the source and then write defer. And so what this does is it basically loads the script after all of the elements are loaded in the body. So it's basically the same thing, but now it's going to be in the head instead of the body. And when I click the button again, we can see that it's printed the event. Moving on to the next beginner mistake, which is going to be by overusing the div tags. And so this whole big div is just for creating a banner. And it's going to take us 1, 2, 3, 4 divs just to get to the image. And then after these 2 divs, it's going to take us 2 more divs just to get to the text of the banner. Now, the reason this is bad is because it makes your code look really unprofessional. And then if you do this a lot in your HTML file, so something like this, and let's say that all of these divs were for different elements, it would take you a lot longer to find the div that you want. And then it's also going to make your code slower because you use a lot of space, a lot of lines, and yeah, it's going to take a lot longer to load than it would be if you would create a banner like this. So we would write banner, and then here we would create 2 more divs, and that's it. So we would have the banner image, and then here we just have the image, and then under we would have the banner, and then text. And then here we would create the text, and so this would be it. So instead of creating all of this unnecessary code, it would create a banner like this, which looks a lot cleaner. And now I would make this even shorter by removing this and using some CSS. So you could go to your CSS file, write banner, and then here you just set the background image to the path of the image that you want the banner to have as the background. Moving on to the last HTML beginner mistake, which I'm going to go over this video, which is actually really important, and it's not using the layout tags. So the layout tags are going to look like this. We have the first one, which is the header, the second one, main, and then the last one is footer. Now, the reason that they're important is because it makes your code look professional when you use them, and then also cleaner. So in the header, you would put things like your nav bar. So let's do that. Put that in the header. There we go. Now in the main, you would basically put all the content that's after that. So basically this. And then in the footer, you would put the footer. And I don't have one right now, so I'm not going to put it here, but this is just an example. So now we can see we have the header. So there's the body, header, and then there's the main, and then the footer. So these are going to be the main 3 layout tags that you should always use. And so when a programmer looks at this, it makes your code look a lot more professional than it would be without you using them. Now moving on to the first CSS beginner mistake, which is going to be using way too many selectors just to select one element. So over here, I have a banner. And for the first CSS here selection, we're selecting the image. So this over here. And so the first part right here, which we can remove to make this a lot shorter, is the name of the element. So a lot of beginners tend to write the name of the element when they're selecting an element that they want, even when the class name has the name of the element, right? So we can delete that. Now the next thing would be, for some reason, there's some beginners who even write body, so the body here, and then main and so on, which we don't need to. We can delete that also. Now, if you like this, you can keep it like this, but we can make this even shorter. So if you want to, you can do something like this. You can even remove the banner image. And so this would be even cleaner. And then, so this is how we can make this a lot shorter. So now we have two words here instead of this many, right? Now let's try the next one. So we can remove the body main, delete that. We have, so now we're selecting the banner text. We can also delete that. And then banner title, and we can delete the name of our element. Same goes here, so we can delete this. Or, sorry, not the banner. So we delete this part, delete the banner text, and then the paragraph. And then the same goes here. So this is to make your code look a lot cleaner, more professional, and then so that it will take less lines and space in your CSS style. The next mistake I'm going to go over is using color names, and so you might be confused why. And the reason for this is because the more you progress with web development, you're going to want to start having more freedom with colors, and when you use color names, you're not going to have as much freedom as you would like. So in this case, I would like a red color, and so this is the one that I get. Now I want a red color that's going to be a bit darker than this, but if I wrote something like dark red, right, it would be a dark red, but for me it's too dark. So to fix this, right, I would use a hex color or RGB. So I would go somewhere like this and choose the one that I want, right? So this isn't, so somewhere around here, right? It's not too dark, not too light. This is the red that I'd want. Same thing with, let's say, blue, right? So this blue is going to be a bit too dark for me. But if I write something like light blue, right? This might be too light for you. What I would do is go somewhere around here, right? I would write blue, and then I would choose a blue like this probably, right? Somewhere around here. And the only times that I do use RGB, or sorry, the only times that I use color names is when I want to find a color close to the color name. So what I mean by this is, let's say that I wanted to have a custom green. I would just write green, and then I would actually hover here to choose the green that I want. So probably somewhere around here, let's say. And so there we go. This makes it a lot easier instead of doing something like let's start with white and then going to look for a green and so on. Now the next beginner mistake is going to be writing 0 pixels, and the reason that it's a mistake is because you can actually just write 0 and it would still work the same way. So we can see that nothing changed. I'm actually just going to delete this part. But yeah, so when you write 0, it makes your code look a lot cleaner than it would be when you would write pixels, and then also a bit more professional. And now moving on to the first JavaScript beginner mistake that I'm going to go over is not using the strict equal sign. So this is what it looks like, and I'm going to go over what it is and why you should use it. So the basic equal sign basically just checks if the values are the same. So this is 5 and then this is also 5. And now we can see that it just console logs that it's true. So a is equal to 5. But then if you actually take a look at this value right here, this is actually going to be an integer, and then this is going to be a string. And you'll see why it's important in a second. So if I add the strict equal sign, now it's going to print out that a does not strictly equal to 5, but equals to 5, right? This doesn't really make sense, but it will in a second. So the reason that it doesn't work is not because these values are different. They are the same, but for the strict equal sign, two things have to be set to true. So the values are both set to 5, so that's 1, but the second one is going to be that this one has to be, so this one has to be an integer because this one is an integer, right? So the next one, in better words would be that if the value here is going to be set to, let's say, string, then this value also has to have to be a string. If this is an integer, this also has to be an integer. Boolean, this also would have to be a Boolean, and so on. So right now we can see that a does not strictly equal to 5, but equals to 5. But then if I change this to a string, we can see that now it works. Moving on to the next JavaScript mistake, which is going to be not handling your JavaScript errors properly. Now, in this case, we have this button, and every time we click it, we can see that we're going to be adding 1 to our count. And let's just say that we had a lot of code here and you forgot to create this count, right? We would click this, we would get the error. Now, sometimes it wouldn't know why it got the error, so you would just get an error and you wouldn't know why. And also when you get an error, then everything stops. So let's say that something was happening here in the back end, right? You got the error, you would have to restart the server and start all over again. But there's this way to handle errors that wouldn't stop your whole server, and then you would have to restart your server and start all over again. And to actually handle your errors, we're going to use a method that's called try and then catch. So it's kind of like an if statement, or we're writing try and catch instead of if and else. Here we're going to actually write error, and we're going to put this inside of the event listener. You'll see why later. We're going to put the count and return in the try, and then in the catch, we have this error, so we can actually log it. So we're going to write log error like this plus the error. And now when we click it, we can see that we're not going to get the error that we got from before, but we actually get a log. So that means that the servers are not going to stop if you're doing backend or anything else in the front end that would stop when you get an error. And no matter how many times I click it, we're not going to get an error. And even if we don't log it, then we can see that we're not getting any errors. So this is a pretty nice way that you can handle your errors. And so the reason that I actually put it in the event listener is because if we actually put it here, so try, we're going to put this inside of here, right? Catch here. Let's do the same thing. So error plus the error. Now we're going to actually cut this, paste it in here. And then when we click it, then we get an error. And now we're going to go over the last mistake that I'm going to go over in this video, which is going to be trying to reassign constant variables. So right here, we have a constant variable count, which is going to be set to 0. And under here, we're trying to reassign it or add 1 to its current value, which is why we're getting this error. So if you didn't know, constant variables are variables that you cannot reassign after you've set them to a certain value. So right now it's going to be set to 0 and we can never change it under it. So if I try to change it to, well, like over here, we're trying to change it, we're going to get this error because it's a constant. Now, if we change this to a let, then we can see that it works. And also if we change this to a var, same thing is going to happen. It's going to work. So make sure that when you set a variable to a constant, that you're not going to change it again. But if you will, then change it to a let or a var. And so this is going to be for this video. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, then leave a like, sub to the channel for more content like this. Leave a comment down below if you want to see more videos like this, or maybe a part 2 to this video. And like I said before, thanks for watching and see you next video.